Welcome to Community Voices with your host, Terence Lauchie. This radio roundtable features community, business, and religious leaders that discuss current events and topics that impact our urban community. If you would like to be a guest or if you have a suggested topic, contact the station today at 616-259-7342. Now, into the program.
Greetings, this is Terence Lauchie, and you're tuned into another edition of Community Voices on 91.9 FM, The People's Choice. So today we're going to have a good conversation with the Urban League's new CEO, and that's Mr. Eric Brown. Talk a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here today and be able to have this platform to share a little bit about myself. I'm a born and raised Grand Rapidian. Spent all of my life here with the exception of some years in college down in Baton Rouge. Attended Southern University. Other than that, I spend most of my time in 49503. You know, we do zip codes a lot these days.
I know, I was going to say.
So 49503 and 49506 was primarily where I spent my time. I grew up probably first 14 years of my life over in 500 block of Union, so about a half a mile, a little over half a mile maybe from here. Then we moved up the street in Sherman and Benjamin in Easttown. So
it's hometown for you.
This is hometown.
Great. That
is, I'm a Rapidian through and through, Grand Rapidian through and through.
Awesome. Well, you're new to your role, I guess, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about some of your personal interests and what's going on with the Urban League and what we can look forward to. As a minister in the community, you know, we're somewhat involved or connected. My wife, in fact, is involved with one of the committees, the tobacco cessation that's going on right now, and she talks about the Urban League and what's going on over there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. For those who might just be tuning in, I'm Terence Lauchie. This is Community Voices on 91.9 FM, The People's Choice. And I'm talking to Mr. Eric Brown, who is the CEO of the Urban League of West Michigan. What does that entail? Talk about that job.
Well, it's a community-facing job where the Urban League is the oldest civil rights organization here in Grand Rapids, and thus being, you know, we have a role in the community. We have the way I see it is that I have a role to be I'm trying to use the right words. I need to be a conduit for the community as far as what goes on, in particular in the area of our four pillars, which are education, employment, housing, and health. Those are our four pillars, and I always say either it's a fifth pillar that's emerging or a foundation of civic engagement.
Okay.
You know, thinking back over events.
Well, that might be the capstone. Who knows?
Capstone, or I like that. That might be the capstone. But
sure.
That is.
Because that's where it all comes together.
That's where it all comes together. That's why we do what we do. That's why we operate in those four pillars. The intersectionality between those pillars, to make sure that the community and those that are most disadvantaged are able to benefit from some of the things that we can do and some of the things we can look at some of our government agencies and some of our, the public school systems, to make sure that these things are going together and flowing together in a positive way that are going to impact the people that
sure.
Are
Sounds like a distribution of resources, meaning, both equitable in resources, the things that we can measure, and then those invisible resources like access.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about that too. I really want to know why you chose this particular career. I was looking at your background. You got some accounting in your background. I was teasing you off the air about being a number cruncher, working with an accounting firm. But talk about your journey to where you have gotten to as the CEO.
And I'll try to make it brief as possible. I knew I wanted to do something that was going to have community impact. Mm-hmm. I never knew what that was going to be. Got to college. The short story is, thought I wanted to go into politics. And
you're a poli-sci major?
I thought I was going to declare that early on, and then I saw too many people come back with that degree that were selling encyclopedias.
Right.
I said, hey, I stepped back. Being a young man, hey, well, business runs everything anyway. That's what we're taught and told is that business
follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, let me go get into business if I want to have impact. And so I thought I was going to do marketing. Fast forward, I saw too many people coming back with marketing degrees that were selling vacuum cleaners. So I said, I need something with more tangibility and tangible within business. So I chose accounting. And back then, when I was in school, there were a number of organizations, multinational organizations, that were having issues around fraud and stuff like that.
Sure.
And then so I said, I really wanted to run my own business one day. So I said,
auditing and forensics investigation?
Didn't know what at first. I did see the value in doing an audit, and then I always have had a passion for real estate and real estate development and construction. So my plan was to be retired by now.
And do investing.
And doing investing, sitting back, doing my investings, and checking in on my companies every day. I'm about 25 years behind that plan.
And a few companies short, right?
A few companies short.
The community still has need of you, then, obviously.
Well, hey, it is. It's all in God's will. So, and I'm fine with that. But when this position did come available, I interned here, and back in 1992, and that really gave me
You worked through a few directors.
No, I was a summer intern.
Okay, and when I'm saying work through, meaning there have been a couple directors since you started as an intern.
Yes.
So there have been few people before you in this role.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. What has been and that gave me a perspective what the Urban League was. I was a lot more familiar at that time with the NAACP. Some other organizations wasn't super familiar with what was going on at the Urban League. What drew me to the Urban League then, and what drew me back now, is the focus on the economic justice side of civil rights. That's what really drew me in. And when the position came available, I threw my name in the hat, and lo and behold, they did select me through a process.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What literally drew you to it? You know, you mentioned the college journey and the multiple majors. I think we all switched our majors multiple times. I went to Michigan State and stayed a lot longer than I should have, but that's because I had lots of majors, and had to finish them out, and ultimately finished 2 of them. But the point I was making is that we change in our careers all the time. They say an adult will have had almost 9 different career positions in their lifetime by the time they get to be, retired. What keeps you doing this community service piece? Your passion. You said that you are a Grand Rapidian, so we know the place, the location, the real estate, of course, is this area. But why do what you do?
Well, I never intended to come back here in college. Going down to Southeast, going to HBCU, that broadened my
different world,
enlightened me to a different, especially a different world. However, life circumstances brought me back, and as I grew and I won't say replanted roots, but my roots got deeper and thicker here. I said, I need to do what I can to help make this a better place that it can be, and to be more like some of the other places that I was attracted to come on out of college, where there's more inclusivity, where there's more development with the minorities, particularly around economics, education, et cetera, and to be able to try to help make this a community that we can draw others to. And then having kids, and then seeing, the disparities that exist, and I have two male child, two young men, actually, I should say, and a young lady.
Yeah, you can't call them boys and girls anymore. They're young adults. Huh?
Absolutely not. The youngest is about to be 20, so yeah,
Whoa.
I got to call him young. And he's bigger than me, so hey, definitely.
Young adults.
Young adults. So I said, hey, I got to make this a place, do what I can, with the Lord's power, to be able to make this a place that is going to be place that's going to be great for everybody.
Sure.
We hear that buzz term out there about we want to make this better for everybody, a place that's welcoming for all, and a lot of times that all means different things to different people.
Sure.
So that's what drew me to the work. The Urban League's mission basically is essentially that people realize their full economic self-reliance, and I think that has that parlays into other areas, and there's intersectionalities with education, health, and some of those other areas. But if people are realizing their full economic potential, Black and brown people in particular, it's going to make this a better place for all. And
so the Urban League definitely provides a lens. It provides a scope for people to not only access resources, but also feel the empowerment. Oldest organization, you said it was considered a civil rights organization.
Yeah, because we're a civil rights organization, and we're the oldest in Grand Rapids. We're the oldest in Grand Rapids. We started here in 1943.
And then the second would be the NAACP,
yes.
I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you've been there since October.
Since October, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the programming, some things that you've seen happen in these few months, and what can we expect?
Well, in these few months, we've always been one of the things we can hang our hat on, and probably most listeners out there will be able to say that if they have not gotten a job through the Urban League, they know somebody that got a job through the Urban League.
Exactly. I know somebody who got a job through the Urban League. Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the things.
And I've referred a lot of people, just so you know.
And we appreciate that. That's one thing we're able to hang our hat on, is that we have good relationships within the community. We screen people so that we do a little bit of matchmaking to make good fits for the jobs and good retention. So we're known for, and that's some of the, if you think about the GMs of the world and the Grand Rapids Public School System and other organizations, we were instrumental in getting some of the first blacks into some of those organizations. So that pattern has continued on. We also do tenant and landlord mediation. We don't actually get, we're not like licensed mediators or anything like that, but
Right.
we help the tenants understand their rights. We help the landlords understand their rights, and we usually try to mediate situations to keep people from being evicted. So we do eviction prevention, we do foreclosure prevention. Those are some of the programs that we're known for in housing. And then
Gathering of resources to make sure that people don't get evicted, or just simply the legalities of it?
both and.
Okay.
Both and then if we can help you, our staff, we have 3 certified HUD housing counselors.
Got it.
And they're able to then match them with resources even outside of our organization.
If they need to relocate or something like that.
So those are 2 of the areas that we're probably most known for. Our local affiliate. We talked a little bit about tobacco cessation
Yes.
earlier on, which was actually one of the areas that I was probably least maybe drawn to, aware of when I first came into the organization. But I've learned so much over that period of time. What is fascinating to me, and these are things that probably are out there for us as we just kind of visualize,
that
but
we
when
don't
we
even know.
see them,
Yeah.
if you overlay the maps of mental health and you break them up by zip codes or census tracts, however you want to break them down, if you overlay the maps with heart disease, diabetes, stroke, tobacco use, and mental health, it's so much concentrated in our area, so much concentrated in our inner cities. And then how smoking, why we're against that, smoking just exacerbates all these other health conditions.
Absolutely.
It might be a mode of dealing, around mental health and all that. So we won't really get into all that. But if you put smoking on top of all these other health issues that already disproportionately affect our communities, it just makes them that much worse.
And now it's more so than just smoking. It's smoking and tobacco use through vaping, as well as the other forms of use. It's just something that has been disproportionately taking a toll on the African American community. Absolutely.
And then learning, we saw, I think we're about the same generation. So,
Sure.
You think about those, just one thing I learned just recently is those newspaper ads or those magazines ads
Targeted
to us. Those were some of the first time that blacks were ever seen in advertising.
Because it was cool, no pun intended.
It's cool, no pun intended.
No pun intended.
Then you think of the nicotine that's in there.
Yeah.
And just how these tobacco companies, it's documented.
Sure.
They know what they're doing to the community.
Specifically, they came after communities that had dispensable income and status symbols were attractive, from malt liquor to tobacco use.
Yeah, and knowing the health benefits, but for the value, but for the almighty dollar, they still do that. So
yeah,
that's been one thing that's been enlightening. And on a personal note, my own father, he died from a stroke, but the doctor told us had he not started smoking again, he probably would not have had that stroke. So those things do hit home for me.
Sure. So you got some personal interest in this.
And then the last one, Pastor Lauchie, is education. I think education is at the root of it all.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about this, but right now we currently have Our Girls Rock and Urban Fellows. Those are summer programs where we take kids and we walk them through about 8 weeks of specific training for career exploration, STEM, college visits and whatnot.
Isn't entrepreneurship one of those?
Yes, thank you. Entrepreneurship, yeah.
Because we've had some of the kids come through that overlap programs, and my son is working right now with the Urban League in videography and helping kids who explore some of those areas.
Absolutely, and the kids thoroughly enjoyed it. It was actually one of our highest evaluated workshops.
They had a lot of fun. I popped in one day while they were over at Carbon Stories, and they were having a great time taking pictures and shooting video and editing and learning, just learning.
Absolutely, and then if that's something creative and that sparks their interest, and then if they can learn, then if we can help them with career exploration as with Carbon Stories, but just in all the fields that are related to production and video and all that, where they can translate that into a career, connecting with them early of something that they enjoy.
Yeah, I was kind of like an insurgent. I went in actually to get my grandson and get out because he was hanging out over there. I was like, there's too many kids over here. Let me get him. Yeah, but that's good. I think that the Urban League has been, in my mind, I grew up in Detroit, so the Urban League in Detroit ran summer youth programs. I think it was the Urban League that got the swim mobile to our neighborhood. It was all kinds of things that the Urban League is noted for, and historically, as a civil rights organization, it's had a voice and also a respectable place at the table when advocating on behalf of people, whether they were citizens who'd gotten in trouble with the law or people who needed lawyers, all of those things. Tell us a little bit about what Grand Rapids is doing, this region's Urban League is doing to promote some of those things.
So, and you talked about within my 10 months. One of the biggest things that happened within my 10 months is I think a date that we'll all mark in history is April 4th when Mr. Loya, when he was when his life was taken by a police officer. We're going to continue to advocate, as I said then, and continue to say, all those things I talked about as far as equitable, economic justice and all those things really don't matter a lot. And if the sanctity of human life is not preserved.
True.
So we're going to continue to fight for civil rights like that. I'm advocating for economic rights and justice with the city of Grand Rapids and as well as with the county of Kent. And we're looking forward to add to our employability. We're looking forward to adding some programming around entrepreneurship with some about three-prong phases. 3 steps that I'm looking at is we think that people need navigation assistance with navigating around in the ecosystem. There's a lot of great providers out there, entrepreneurial support organizations out there, but a lot of our people don't know anything about them. They have great ideas.
And there's a running start before you get to qualify for that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So trying to help them navigate around that system and also doing some matchmaking with some supplier diversity initiatives with a lot of the corporations around that are having supplier diversity. All these things right now are infancy stages, but these are some things that I'd like to do in the future.
Sounds like great vision. It sounds like you have a plan that is going to move us further and further into this 21st, almost 22nd century now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we're at a time in history based on starting probably maybe in 2020 and then with the events locally that happened. But I think we have about a 24 to 36 on the outside time frame to where we can really do some great things, some transformational things in our community that's going to change. That's going to change us for the positive. I think there's an openness and willingness to do that, maybe that didn't exist before.
Sure. Hence the reason why the organization had to start in the first place, right?
Absolutely. Hey, if we worked ourselves out of a job, that'd be a great thing.
Wouldn't it be nice?
It would be great.
We'd all be urban leaguers. Well, I just think about the housing piece in particular because that's one of the areas of disparity. And you mentioned the zip code. A lot of people don't even know that zip codes were actually established to investigate, to research, to observe various populations of people who lived in those areas. Out of that came redlining. Because of that, was there. Talk to us a little bit about your perspective on the housing situation. Are we in a crisis? Is there a shortage of housing? Is there opportunity for people to get involved in real estate development? Some people just need a place to live.
The simple answer is yes, we're in a housing crisis.
That was a setup, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm trying to play into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are definitely in a housing crisis. And I just can't, my previous employer was Link Up Nonprofit Housing Organization, and they dealt in affordable housing. There's reports out, and I won't be able to recite all the stats, but we need, by 2025, I think it's upwards of 9,000 units across the spectrum that we need to be building. And as a last check,
meaning high, moderate, and low income.
Yes, thank you. High, moderate, low income. So basically, people that need assistance with housing to people that have the choice of where they want to be housed.
Sure.
Ranging across that spectrum, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom for rent, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, et cetera, for sale. So we need several units across that whole spectrum. And we're adding as an area, we're adding maybe a couple hundred a year. So we're already behind the pace. So not to sound alarming anymore. But if 2025 was what we're looking at, we're well behind that pace. I really don't believe there's going to be much that we can do about that unless we're adding more units. And I know the city is doing things around, allowing for more density, but we really have to look at allowing for more density. We in West Michigan have a kind of more or less what I'm just is not an official term or anything, but I have a Midwest mindset around housing.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants their city lot or their suburban lot, and they don't want to be too close to their neighbors, and however many bedrooms that is, and a nice sized yard and all those things. But the reality is, with the economic growth going on in our region, we just have to add. We just have to be more dense as a.
Airspace is becoming more and more attractive too.
Absolutely.
Building up as opposed to building out.
Absolutely. The other thing is, then that's the supply and demand. As we have more houses on the market, the pricing will decrease. What the big part of the problem is the people that are earning good wages at the top end of the scale. They're taking up stuff that the mid-level earners would take up, and so the mid-level earners are going down to some of the low.
Right, which pushes the lower income level individuals out.
with no
Yeah.
choice. So that's what we. So it is affordable housing, but it's also we need housing for the upper end of the scale.
Sure. I know that you've got some philosophy probably on the solution, but what is the Urban League doing to help that?
Well, as we can build capacity, we are looking to hopefully be able to get into developing some units around in the inner city, or maybe even redeveloping some units.
Sure. You mean the Urban League itself?
The Urban League itself.
Okay.
We're looking at programming too and advocating for programs and monies to be spent. With programs that are going to allow homeowners to stay in their home. Because if you're close to being homeless, but we can help you stay in home. That's going to be a win as well. So we're advocating for those programs to be able to do that. But I think, again, from what we can do directly is going to be able to see how we can add more units in the inner city.
I think that's awesome. Well, those who are maybe just tuning in or tuned in while we were talking, Mr. Eric Brown is the CEO of the Urban League of the West Michigan areas. We've got about 10 minutes in this conversation, and I want you to tell me a little bit more about anything you'd want them to know, the listening audience, of course. Excuse me. But what is your rollout plan? You're only 10 months in, and we're talking longevity here. What do you see?
My rollout plan is as I'm coming up on my year, I'm going to be sharing some things with my board as far as directions that I want to take. Getting their approval. That should come around in November, which will be my year and a month in. And then we'll, MLK is coming up shortly after that, so that's
a big day for the Urban League.
Big day for the Urban League, so we'll roll out more there. Honestly, there'll be some other things along the way that we'll roll out too as things get approved by the board and maybe funding comes in place on some of the proposals that we have out there, and waiting to see on a lot of those type of things. But we'll be a lot more, a little bit more community facing as far as what we're doing. I know that probably has been a little bit of a drawback on what the Urban League has been, but we'll be more, again, community facing as far as what's going on, some of the new programming that's going on.
Well, how can people get involved? When you think about it, it's not a membership organization, really. As much as it is a volunteer and community partners.
Yeah, and you've done your homework. Yeah, we don't have a traditional membership at this point in time, so that will
Correct.
be one of the things that will be coming in the future. Several people have asked me, well, how can we get involved? Or my mom used to be an Urban Leaguer.
Right.
How can I be an Urban Leaguer?
I grew up going to the summer program with Urban League.
Right. We have a bunch of alumni, so we're going to accept you, and we're going to
Awesome.
we're going to honorarily accept you into this Urban League's alumni of successful people. But we will be looking to roll out membership. We're going to be looking to up our corporate sponsorship, sponsorships that helps us do some of our work as well. But our website, is grurbanleague.org, and there's plenty of opportunities there to sign up to volunteer, to get involved. And I do want to make a plea, because we're going to be making a push for volunteers for two things in particular. We're going to be talking about. I mentioned a little bit about the education, and I'm really looking for us to develop a better relationship with Grand Rapids Public Schools. Great conversations with Dr. Roby,
Yes.
and we've identified 6 to 8 different areas that we think we can work in.
Great.
One of those areas, though, is we're going to need a lot of volunteers. We're going to need a lot
Absolutely.
of volunteers. So, for example, we have the school has a shortage of teachers, almost 200. Last time I heard, and it could be different, almost 200, maybe around 180 shortage of teacher vacancies alone. So what that does is that shifts the responsibilities for administrators, for principals. Everybody has to shift, and then their work, they have to do that work as well as to get that. So we're looking to see if we can help this school by recruiting as many volunteers as we possibly can to go in the school and do things like, just hey, can we help out at recess? Can we help out and read to the kids in school? Can we help out in the lunchroom? Different ways that they can volunteer that does not take an educational degree or anything like that.
Sure.
But a presence in the building, as well as with some of the alternative education programs. And this appeal is it'll be targeted to people that look like you and I, black men.
Sure.
I'm going to say we're going to need
people who are at risk for becoming statistics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to target, and I'm making an appeal and a plea to as many black men as possible to see if you can just give a couple hours a week.
Sure.
Or a couple hours every couple of weeks, and a collective impact will go a long ways.
That makes sense. I think that the village that we oftentimes talked about in that colloquialism, and the village is among us. The village has turned into a jungle if we're not careful.
Absolutely.
So I think that we all have some responsibility to do something in the community to make a difference, and that would be a good place. Tell us again how to contact the Urban League and how to get in touch with you.
grurbanleague.org. grurbanleague.org is our website. We have our social media is another thing that I'm working on right now. We don't have a very big social media presence, but we're going to be increasing our social media presence. And my email is ebrown@grurbanleague.org.
Terrific. Well, we do have a few more minutes left, and this is the part that I really like. We got about 5 minutes. I want you to tell me a little bit about Eric Brown, beyond your professional career, beyond what you do. Great job with the Urban League, and, congratulations on 10 months of working success. But if we saw you at a ball game, we saw you at the grocery store, who's Eric Brown? Tell us about your family, your kids, those kinds of things.
Well, you hit the top one off the nail. You will see me at a lot of ball games. So I'm what I call now an athlete. I used to be an athlete, but now
I'm a wannabe elite.
What's that?
A wannabe elite.
Wannabe elite.
Which means that I was never an athlete, but I would have if I could have. So I got an athletic mind. That's it.
There's a lot of transition the ways that can translate. That's good. So I thoroughly enjoy sports.
Awesome.
I played sports in high school, played college football. Yeah. Kids play high school and college sports, and my son is currently still at Grand Valley playing football. So
Sweet.
I will be around a lot of football games. I'm kind of laid back guy. I was going to say a nickname that seems to travel me places, but not on these airwaves like this. It's nothing negative.
So you hear people yelling at you across the parking lot. They got my nickname.
Right. But no, I thoroughly I like family. I love spending time with family.
Sure.
I've been very involved in my church families over the years.
Really, what church are you with?
I grew up in what is now Wellspring Church. It started off as Community Bible Baptist. Charlie Selman is currently the pastor over there. So grew up, spent a lot of time there in various forms of service and leadership. Then currently now I'm at Tabernacle Community.
Terrific.
That's a lot of what I do outside of the limited time I have is serve at my church or attend. I've coached. The way I've served the community for a long time.
I was going to tell you, I'm getting coach vibes from you.
Coached football, coached basketball for many, many, many years at different levels. So just passionate on sharing with these young folks anything that I can help them on their path and on their journey. And that's really what I translate to my role even now.
Right. I was going to say it's a nice segue into what you do for the community.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see our community just reach its full potential. There's so much potential that's here. And it just, it doesn't lead me to weeping over Grand Rapids like Jesus wept over.
But there is a
Jerusalem.
lamentation. Leaders have lamentations, part of their
Absolutely. So it's when we see where we can be, and just I'm looking forward to that day where we can say that hey, we're on our path. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a note of hope. I think that it's important to have people like yourself working in the community that has a positive outlook. You're not just in it for a job, but it's part of your passion. You're a Grand Rapidian who's homegrown, went away, came back, and now adding even more to the community. With your families. I think that it's with your family and what you do passionately. I think that that's an important component. What is the greatest challenge right now that you see facing our urban community?
Wow, the greatest challenge is, I think,
I know if we were to summarize it to one, I mean,
Yep.
You got 4 pillars that you can build from, but just one challenge.
This one actually is, I think where we're at from a civic engagement standpoint in our communities is a critical point. I think we've fallen back in our the National Urban League's landmark production of our State of Black America even lends to that. As a country, we have fallen back in our civic engagement.
Sure.
Our civic how to engage, the knowledge about how to engage civically. So I think that's critically important. I think, and I don't want to get too esoteric or whatever, but our democracy, I think, is at a critical point right now. And this is regardless of affiliation. There are things that we're founded on, and I think some of those things are being on attack right now. And I think it's very important that we are engaged locally, statewide, as well as nationally in what's going on in the civic process. I think maybe as a community, we have shifted our priority towards the economic side, and maybe to the detriment of the civic engagement side just a bit. So I think we need to make sure that we're re-engaged with the civic process.
So some of that is generational, based on being taught, marketed to get the bag, as they would say, go after the money.
That's right.
But what about the people?
That's right.
What about where you live? What about the access to health care, housing, and all of those things?
Absolutely. And if I could end with one thing, I know we're almost running out of time. My wife shared with me about the Maasai tribe in Africa.
Okay.
And this tribe was a tribe of warriors. The men were known for how great warriors they were. But when they would come in contact with each other, they always asked, how are the children? And the premise there is if the children are well, then everybody's well.
Right.
So I want to implore our listening audience to think about how are the children. Not just my children, not just your children, but the children of the community, to the point that even the warriors that didn't have children communicated in such a way. How are the children, and understood that if the community children were fine, that means that they're doing their job
They're safe,
as
we're
men.
fed. Yeah.
They're safe, fed. They're doing their job as men and as warriors.
Man, that's awesome. That's a great note to end on. I really appreciate the time that we've had together. And people can contact you at the Urban League, and it's the Urban League GR?
grurbanleague.org.
grurbanleague.org.
Technical name is Urban League of West Michigan.
Great. Well, Mr. Eric Brown, thank you so much for being here. This is Terence Lauchie. You've been tuned into another edition of Community Voices on 91.9 FM, The People's Choice.
You've been listening to Community Voices with your host, Terence Lauchie. Community Voices can be heard every Friday at 12 noon. This radio roundtable features community, business, and religious leaders that discuss current events and topics that impact our urban community. If you would like to be a guest, or if you have a suggested topic, contact the station today at 616-259-7342. Until next week, let your voice be heard in the community.